Council come to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the republic for which it stands, one nation.
Everyone else is now muted.
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mandy, please call the roll.
DeYoung.
Here.
Danstruck.
Here.
Speakout.
Here.
Hopkins.
Here.
Spore. Here. And Brader is absent.
Okay, for just some housekeeping items, this meeting is virtual, so those of you that are on the phone, you will be able to provide verbal comments during the dedicated public forums. I would please plead with you if you're not speaking, to put your telephones and microphones on mute so we don't get any feedback. And if you wish to speak, then you'll take them off of mute and you will be allowed to speak. And if you're watching, following along the meeting presentation online, and you have a loss of connectivity, the meeting can be viewed at City of Pella website. We'll announce there's no policy and planning meeting following tonight's regular council meeting. I need a motion for approval of the tentative agenda.
So moved. Support.
Manstra, Hopkins, any discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Danstruck.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Spore. Yes. DeYoung.
Yes.
Speakout.
Motion passed. All right, so to start the meeting, we have a public forum. This public forum is for anyone who wishes to address council regarding any item that is on the agenda. Agenda items only. If you want to address council on an agenda item, please you can come forward to the mic, state your name and address, and please try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Anyone on the phone wish to speak to an agenda item?
Everyone else is now unmuted.
Okay, hearing none, we'll move on.
Everyone else is now muted.
Right, can I get a motion for approval of the consent agenda?
So moved.
Spore.
DeYoung, Spore, any discussion? All in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
DeYoung.
Yes.
Spore. Yes. Danstruck.
Yes.
Speakout.
Yes.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on to petitions and communications. We're considering a new Class C liquor license with Sunday sales privilege for Artisanal LLC doing business as Dutch Fix. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to explain this item to the council. I'd like to go ahead and direct the council's attention to the big board. On this item, as Mayor DeWard stated, tonight's application comes to us from Artisanal, doing business as Dutch Fix. And specifically what we're considering this evening is a new Class C liquor license. It is important to note that we do have a Sunday sales privilege that would be effective on council passage on July 15th as well. Now, as explaining this request, it is important to note that the Dutch Fix is actually expanding down into their basement lounge and located at 621 Franklin Street. It is also very important considering this item that both the lounge area and the primary establishment will be open for dining and as well as alcohol beverages as well on there. It's both the dining options as well as consumption of alcohol will be available on both levels. So it is important to note that the basement area will be closed to patrons under 21. And finally, Mr. Mayor, in considering this item, the applicant did complete the application online with the state of Iowa. Council were to approve this request this evening. The new license would be for 12 months, and if approved, would expire on July 14, 2022. And staff, finally, as far as our departmental review, we are recommending approval this evening. With that, we'd be more than happy to answer any questions the mayor and council may have on this item.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
Spore.
Hopkins, Spore, any discussion?
I find that one item to be contradictory. Both the main level and basement will be open for dining and consuming. However, the beverages will only be served in the basement.
They will be made and purchased to the customer in the basement. They will be able to consume them upstairs though,
Okay.
as well. So
Okay.
the bartender will be located in the basement.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
questions? The people that can answer them are here. So. All right, then we will, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Spore.
Yes.
DeYoung.
Yes.
DeAnstruck.
Yes.
Skibout.
Motion passed. Moving on to resolutions. Resolution number 6311 entitled, "A resolution in support of the proposed terms to be included in agreement for private development by and between the City of Pella and Pella Main Street Market LLC." Mike?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Once again, I'd like to direct everyone's attention to the big board. For those following at home, I'm on slide number 3 this evening. It is important to note, as Mayor DeWard stated, we are entertaining what's a conditional resolution of support for the proposed Pella Market that is proposed to be located at 503 Main Street. As council is aware, we did previously discuss this during our policy and planning session, this very item on June 15. On the direction of council, we're considering this item formally at this time. Now, in considering this item, to explain the conditional resolution of support, what this simply is, it outlines the cities, what we intend to do if the developer meets certain conditions. And we'll be going through in more detail on what those conditions are and what the responsibility of the City of Pella would be as well. Now, as far as the overall project with this, it is important to note that the developer is proposing the Pella Market, which is intended to be very similar to the Gateway Market. And we do have a description of the market up here on the big board on the fourth bullet point as well. And the 5th bullet point explains that the market will be open for breakfast, lunch, and dinner as well. Now, as far as the proposed location, this is something very important to keep in mind. It's basically at the intersection of Main Street and Independence Street. So basically, this yellow highlighted area is where the Pella Market would be. The new South Main housing development is located just to the south. Casey's General Store is just to the north. And once again, we're talking about this yellow area right here as well. So maybe let's go ahead, please. Now, anytime we consider an item in a project, one of the things that's always a benchmark that the city is considering in relation to the city's comprehensive plan. Now, as we look at the comprehensive plan, we talk about conformance with the city's comprehensive plan. It's important on a couple notes. First of all, the comprehensive plan, when you look at this, there was a section dedicated to needs of the community. One of the needs of the community that was identified in the city's comprehensive plan was additional dining and entertainment entities and drinking establishments that was noted in the comprehensive plan. In fact, the comprehensive plan identified this area as a service gap, which means that local demand exceeded the supply or the retail supply that was being offered. In addition, this portion of Main Street was also identified in the comprehensive plan as a commercial corridor, commercial and economic development area. So based on these two findings, when we look at the key strategic goals of the city's comprehensive plan, as well as this area and references to this area as being a commercial corridor economic development area, from an alignment standpoint of the comprehensive plan, we believe that the proposed project does align with the city's comprehensive plan. In addition, the council made this determination independently in 2021 when the property was rezoned of commercial use for the Pella Market on May 21st of this year as well. Let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Now, in explaining this item, it's also very important to understand what has been done previously on this matter. And really, when we look at this general area, when I talk about the general area, for those following at home, I'm on slide number 5. But if you're to look at this area and basically the diagonal lines in this general area, it's very important to keep in mind where this project is at and what was actually on site in 2018. Basically, this top portion just north of Independence Street is the location of the Pella Market. Down here would have been the former Webster School. For those that were on council in 2018, folks do realize we spent a good deal of time talking about redevelopment in this area. And at the time we had the Webster School, and then also pictured up here on the big board was the big yellow house that did generate some code enforcement issues for the City of Pella as well. So during that time, we actually looked at potential redevelopment options, and right around that time, we formed what was called the Webster Urban Renewal Area, which is basically this area that has the diagonal lines generated through it, this general area. In addition, at that time, we also hired a consultant that was simmering in Corey out of Northwest Iowa to take a look at this area in regards to blight under Iowa law. And the consultant reported back and reviewed the properties in here, and in this general area that we're referring to with the diagonal lines, the consultant made a finding that 75% of the properties that were located in this area were blighted under Iowa law. So when we adopted the Webster Park Urban Renewal Plan, it's very important to note that the urban renewal plan that we adopted, one of the key goals was the elimination of blight through economic development. So that's very, very important when we consider these items for future action items, in particular with the Pella market. So let's go ahead, Mandy. Now, due to the complexity of this project, once again, on there, the developer is looking at, basically, when we talk about complexity, what we mean is, what we're talking about is redevelopment. And redevelopment projects can be tricky for developers on this. It is important to note, because of the site constraints and also what's being proposed to redevelop the site into, the developer is requesting to receive economic development grant funds funded through tax increment financing revenues. And I want to make very clear, when we talk about rebates, you're talking about future property taxes on the incremental value of property that will be built on the site. So you're not talking about current property taxes. You're talking about new buildings and future taxes that would be attributed to those new buildings on there. When we look at the Pella market, and again, this is the operations of the Pella market are intended to be very similar to the Des Moines Gateway market. The estimated cost of the project to build the Pella market is roughly $5 million. Where it becomes somewhat complex for the developer is you're looking at a very constrained site that has challenges. In addition, operating a venture similar to the Gateway market in Des Moines in a demographic area that's smaller, such as Pella, is challenging. And as a result, the developer is requesting 15 years of tax increment financing rebates. Now, explaining this item, so what we have here, the developer is requesting to have TIF revenues rebated to them. We're going to get into the details, but in the conditional resolution of support, what the conditional resolution of support has is a maximum cap of $1,775,000. That would be the value rebated back to the developer if they pay property taxes to the tune of the property over 15 years. Now, as a condition for the rebates, one of the things we'll be going over is that the developer will be required to sign a minimum tax assessment agreement. The investment cost of the project is $5 million. What the developer is going to be required to do is sign a minimum taxable valuation stating that their minimum assessed value after rollback purposes will be at least $4 million. In addition, that is subject to also proposed to increase by 2% on an annual basis as well. So if you multiply $4 million and have a 2% inflationary increase over the next 15 years, that's how we're getting up to $1,775,000. We'll go into further detail on that rebate here very shortly. Mandy, let's go ahead, please. Now, in looking at this item and analyzing the financial matters at hand, it's very important to realize that the developer and what's being proposed is to be rebated on future property taxes on a building that isn't even built right now. If you were to go down to the site right now, the yellow house and associated residential properties have been removed. That's bare vacant ground that's currently there. And so what this would mean would be that the city would only pay the developer if the developer actually pays property taxes to the City of Pella. So under this risk agreement, and when you look at development, generally there's risk involved with development, especially redevelopment projects. Staff believes that most of the risk is actually transferred to the developer because they will only receive grants equal to the property taxes that they pay. Actually less than the property taxes paid. Tax increment revenues is about 80 to 85% of the total property taxes, generally as a rule of thumb. And then looking at it from the City of Pella standpoint, so we would be rebating taxes only if we receive them from the developer. So the developer has to remain operational and they have to service and operate the Pella market that's spelled out in the development agreement. Now, when looking at this item, anytime we get into TIF rebate agreements, we always analyze it from a service level standpoint to make sure that we can at least have a good feeling that we can serve the development without triggering a service level increase at the City of Pella. And reviewing this item, we believe we can provide services to the development and serve the development without necessarily triggering a property tax increase for the general public at large. So that's very important to keep in mind as we consider this item this evening. Let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Now, as we stated, tax increment financing revenues are only a portion of revenues paid to the city. When you look at this and you look at any time you have TIF, keep in mind this is for new valuation. And what happens is, a matter from a practical standpoint, is the property's current assessed valuation becomes frozen in time, all the local taxing entities receive property tax off the base revenue of what's their existing. So what they receive in property taxes right now and what the property is valued at, they'll continue to receive that base amount. When we talk about the increment or what the developer is proposing to build on that, the local entities will still receive their debt service levy, and the school district will still receive its PEPL levy as well. So when we look at this transaction and you compare the 3 residential properties that were there before the urban renewal plan on there compared to the Pella market, what you have there is projected non-TIF related property taxes from the Pella market. So these would be property taxes that would be paid new from the Pella market on there that the city is not currently receiving, the school district is not receiving, the county is not receiving. This would just be the debt service portion. That amount totals $15,600. If you look at what the property taxes received from the big yellow house and the 2 other residential properties prior to that, it's right around $2,600. So there'll be a net increase in total property taxes received by the local government entities, right around $13,000. In addition, in looking at this matter, what we've just simply talked about is just the base property taxes. We also believe the market has the potential to draw visitors, which to our community would produce a positive economic impact for the city as well. Well, let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Okay, for those following at home, I'm on slide number 9. Now, as far as the schedule, the construction schedule for the Pella market, what we do have up here, before we talk about the schedule, is the color elevations. Those were the color elevations that were approved in the planned unit development for the Pella market. That is what the developer is required to build when we look at the Pella market. So it'll be this exact same elevations that we have here. However, when you look at development agreements, they take some time to put together, and they're rather significant agreements. The item that we have at hand, and the reason why we're considering a conditional resolution of support this evening, is the developer would actually like to start construction on the Pella market this summer. As a result, they've requested the conditional resolution of support that we are considering this evening. It is very important to note that if council passes the conditional resolution of support, there'll be a formal development agreement that will be considered at a later date or presented at a later date to the Pella City Council. Now, as we stated earlier when we began this presentation, what the resolution of support is really intended to do is clarify that the city intends to include in the potential development agreement. Everything is conditional upon the developer meeting certain conditions. I want to stress, in considering this item this evening, this resolution does not create a binding obligation for the city, but rather describes potential project contributions by the city of Pella. And as we said on this, the contributions are conditional on the developer meeting conditions, including all city requirements, including all legislative requirements, and also including the city council approving a formal development agreement for the project. Now, in the following slides, we're going to go over briefly the obligations of the developer and the obligations of the city of Pella. So let's go ahead. What we have here on slide number 10 is the responsibilities of the developer. So as stated in the conditional resolution support, the developer would be required to construct the Pella market by December of 2022. In addition, the market would need to be constructed in accordance with all city standards, including the recently approved PUD ordinance, which establishes the design standards for the market. The developer would also be required to sign a minimum tax assessment agreement for the project as well, and that would be the minimum that the project would be taxed at, and that minimum would be $4 million. They would need to agree to at least an annual assessment increase of 2%. Now, as far as operations, the market would need to be operated 6 days a week for at least 8 hours per day. And we have a description on what the developer is obligated to provide as far as services to the community. Well, let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Now, as far as the city of Pella, if the developer meets all those requirements on there, so they've met all legislative requirements and they are in operational compliance with the development agreement, the city would provide 15 grants to the developer up to 100% of the tax increment revenues generated by the project, and that's spelled out under Iowa Code 403.19. The aggregate amount of the grant payments would not exceed $1,775,000. And keep in mind that's a portion of the total property taxes generated. These would be new property taxes for a building that is not even constructed yet. So everything we're talking about is new taxes. It's all conditional upon the city receiving an equivalent amount in tax increment finance rebates that we would rebate back to the developer. It's also important to note, just in summary, that the resolution of support is conditioned upon the the city completing all legislative processes necessary for their project that would be included in the Webster Park Urban Renewal District that exists and is showing up on the big board as well. In addition, the resolution of support is subject to the City Council approving a development agreement for the project as well. So Mandy, let's move ahead, please. Now, in summary, we believe this conditional resolution of support in the Pella market in general addresses a critical shortage of eating and dining establishments within our community. The location and actually the operations, we believe, align closely with the city's comprehensive plan. When we first started the urban renewal plan, the Webster Park Urban Renewal Plan, one of our key goals was the elimination of blight through economic development, and we believe the Pella market certainly contributes to this as well. And from a financial standpoint, we believe most of the risk of the development is transferred to the developer, because for the developer to receive rebates, they have to pay property taxes to the City of Pella, and they have to meet operational requirements for the agreement as well. So from a risk standpoint, most of the risk is transferred to the developer, and I believe we've covered this. And then finally, I would just like to mention that we believe projects like this have the potential to lead to additional redevelopment. From our standpoint, when you look at redevelopment, actually redevelopment in town where public infrastructure already is there, and especially redevelopment that eliminates blight is beneficial to the City of Pella. Now, as a result of this, staff is recommending approval of the conditional resolution of support tonight, Mr. Mayor. And with that, I believe, Mandy, does that conclude everything? That concludes our presentation. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions the mayor and council may have on this item.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval? Hopkins for discussion, questions.
You may have mentioned this in the work session. How long do those legislative processes take to turn this from a conditional into a final?
Well, the legislative process is, keep in mind, this is just a conditional resolution of support. All it simply outlines is our intent to grant the development if they meet conditions. And so what will happen after this is, at a later date, we will present a formal development agreement. The development agreement, as we know it is likely, could be for the life of the project, could be somewhere between 15 to 20 years. During the terms of the development agreement, the developer is going to be obligated to meet all those requirements that we just outlined up here, the operational requirements that we went over. And also, they're going to be required to abide by the minimum tax assessment agreements during the term of the agreement. It is important to note also, in answering the question on this, there is a different type of enforcement mechanism for the city as well. The developer is going to be required to abide by the planned unit development that was approved by the city as well, and that goes on infinite until it's changed by the Pella City Council. That's the zoning aspect of it. So, hope I answered your questions. This is just a conditional resolution support. Formal consideration of the development agreement will be at a later date, but the key thing is it's conditional upon the developer meeting all legislative requirements by the City of Pella.
Hey, Jade, upon approval of this, when do you think work would begin on the site?
Upon approval, we would start quickly. I asked for this week. Don't know if they can quite get it done this week, but it'll be within the next week or two for sure.
As part of the promotion at selling South Main apartments, was not this included and basically a verbal commitment to making this marketplace part of the pitch, if I could put it that way, to South Main individuals that purchase there?
I wouldn't say a verbal commitment was made, but I would say it was definitely discussed as an option, something we were looking into. Yes.
I guess I have had a couple people say that there was it was committed to, yes. And I guess what bothers me a little bit is we've gone through this quite a bit, and through the planning and zoning and the CDC, it was always kind of hung over our head, well, we may not build it, we may not put this up. And I think all along there was intentions, and that part just doesn't sit. Let's be forthright, I guess, is what I really am after. I don't take lightly the unity of the council. I think it's important that we have a united council, but I cannot support this. I think we're setting precedents 1.775. That money could be used a lot of places. And the precedence that we're gonna set is any business that is starting, any grocery store, any restaurant of any sort is gonna be coming in and wants taxpayers' funds. Just my opinion. I am all for this development, this project. You know, I have been. I had a couple questions, but I'm all for it. I don't think it's right that we start using taxpayers' funds to kick back to developers. Thank you.
Anything else?
In response to that, I think Lynn and those who are anticipating redevelopment down Oskaloosa Street fully expect that there will be this kind of support. Otherwise, it isn't gonna happen. And you're right, it's probably setting a precedent, but I think it's the way of things to come.
Anything else? All right, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Hopkins.
Yes.
Score. Yes. DeYoung.
Yes?
DeAnstruck.
Yes.
Skibout.
No.
Motion passed. Moving on, resolution number 6312, entitled Resolution Approving Amendment Number 1 for engineering services with Garden and Associates for the Oostport Alley and Parking Lot Reconstruction Projects. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd be happy to explain this item. For those following at home, I'm on slide number 13 this evening. What we're entertaining this evening is amendment number 1 to our engineering contract with Garden and Associates for the Oostport Alleyway and Parking Lot Reconstruction Projects. We do have a picture of the alleyway project that is scheduled for reconstruction this year. Now, generally speaking, when we talk about the alleyway portion of the project, it extends from Main to East First Street. In addition, what's included in this year's work, if you look at the existing parking lot on East First, that abuts East First and also Washington Street, that parking lot is set to be reconstructed. In addition, the gravel areas that are noted to be packed behind the businesses here will also be paved as part of the project. Now, it's very important to keep in mind in considering this item that the original engineering contract was approved in 2017, and at that time, Phase 1 and Phase 2 of the projects were scheduled to take place in one calendar year. Now, when we looked at Phase 1 of the project, which is an additional sanitary sewer line as well as additional storm sewers that were installed, and in addition, I believe we had a water main project as well back in this area. If you look at Phase 1 and the complexity of the projects, we made a decision to break the projects up into 2 phases. So we had Phase 1, which has been completed. Now we have Phase 2 that's currently scheduled to take place this year. The original agreement was approved in 2017, and based on the engineer's perspective, there was supposed to be 1 phase all completed in the ensuing fiscal year. So now we have construction spread out over 2 years in considering this item. In addition, when we look at the scope of the project, particularly the alleyway, we also had the engineer bid 2 different types of projects. For the alleyway that we have pictured up on the big board, we had them actually bid what would be called, if you were to look at resurfacing that just as an urban or concrete alleyway. In addition, we also had them engineer a brick street. Now, generally speaking, when you look at brick streets, they're a little bit lower elevation than a concrete street, and it takes a little extra work from an engineering perspective. You basically have 2 different types of projects that you're actually designing for the matter. We chose to actually redo this alleyway in a brick street on here as well, ultimately was the decision. So when you look at it from the engineer's standpoint, and you look at the complexity of the project, the fact that it's been broken up into 2 different years, and also had with the alleyway project 2 different projects that were bid. One was of a concrete street, one was of a brick street. They are requesting this evening consideration of those items in the form of the amendment. So Mandy, let's go ahead, please. When we look at the original contract, we started off back in 2017 with an original contract just over $150,000. The engineer is asking for amendment number 1 for an additional $40,000, and really the lion's share of that is the 2 construction observation phases of the project that are going to have to take place in the 2 respective years for the project on it. In addition, there's also some design work that they're asking for that was not included in the original contract. Now, overall, when we look at engineering contracts, I think generally the rule of thumb is when we look at projects, we always look at engineering fees in relation to the construction cost of the project. In this particular case, it looks like the engineering fees are right around 15% of the total construction cost of the project. When you look at the complexity of the project, particularly the amount of underground work that has taken place with the project and will continue to take place, and you look at the overall engineering fees, even with the amendment, we believe the engineering fees are reasonable under the circumstances. So based on our review and the circumstances why the engineer is requesting additional compensation from the City of Pella, staff is recommending approval of amendment number 1 to our engineering contract with Garden and Associates for the Port alleyway as well as the parking lot reconstruction project that's scheduled to take place this year. So with that, Mr. Mayor, we're more than happy to explain this item. The council were to have questions on this, and that completes staff's presentation this evening.
Thank you, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
Support.
Skip out DeYoung. Discussion? Okay,
What was
I'll-
that total,
sorry.
I'm looking, what was the total contract for the hose for it? Remember, Michael, up top?
That I'm going to ask Corey and Danny. It was right around 15%.
Says 1.25.
1.25?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
How's the work coming? How's the timetable coming?
Okay, I'm going to actually refer that question to Public Works, Denny Byer. And the question is how is the project proceeding this year, and how is, I believe is the question.
Real well, once we got started, there was about a 3 to 4 week delay, like everything else across the country. Materials, plastic pipe was back ordered 3 to 4 weeks, took us a while to get it in. Manholes, same deal, a couple weeks behind. So, but now once we got started, I'm hearing possibly today or tomorrow we will finish the sanitary sewer down the middle, east, west. So that's the big deal, get that deep one out of the way, and everything else is a whole lot shallower.
Thank you.
Hey, Denny, I had asked about that fire escape. Did that conversation ever happen? Would it be helpful when that goes through to spin that around, or at least have that discussion?
The one on the left or the right, there's been discussion.
The one on the left, for the sake of turning traffic, coming in,
Yeah, we've
giving
been
more.
talking
clearance.
about that with the owner, we'll see what we can do.
Gotcha.
You know, right now, yeah, it's still, now it's an official fire escape for the
Right.
upstairs restaurant, so it's absolutely needed.
Yep.
But our initial discussions actually have started on the ground, because some of that juts way out into us, what do we do at the surface to start with? Ongoing effort.
Okay, anything else? Then we'll vote. So all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Spivak. DeYoung.
Yes?
Yes.
DeAnstruck. Hopkins.
Yes.
Ford. Yes.
Motion passed. Moving on, resolution number 6313, entitled Resolution Approving Amendment Number 1 for Engineering Services of Garden and Associates for the 218th Avenue and Neal Drive Reconstruction Project. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd be more than happy to explain this item. And once again, I'd like to refer the council's attention to the big board. For those following at home, I'm on slide number 15 this evening. And as Mayor DeWard stated, we are considering amendment number 1 to the engineering contract with Garden and Associates for our project on 218th and Neal Drive this year. Now, in explaining this project, when we look at this project up here, is Idaho Drive is located at the top portion of the screen, and we're actually in the process of reconstructing 218th Avenue and Neal Drive right here. Currently, portions of this road, there's been some form of an asphalt overlay on portions of the road, but a good portion of the segment is actually a gravel road. What we're proposing and actually going to reconstruct it in is an urban cross-section street. So it'll be a regular city street, a concrete street. And that's important to keep in mind as we talk about this particular request this evening. Now, once again, as the council's aware, it took us some time to make a decision. There's a lot of debate on the size and scope of the project that we have out here. The original engineering contract with Garden was actually entered in 2019. Now, originally, what we had proposed was a 24-foot wide asphalt rural cross-section roadway. So this would be an asphalt overlay on this road up here. But after having work sessions on it with the City Council, we decided that the scope was actually expanded for the project to actually a 31-foot wide concrete urban cross-section street, along with additional storm sewer intakes as well as a sidewalk on the project. So the size and scope of the project increased on this as well. And that's important to consider when we talk about additional compensation for the engineer. Let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Listed up on the big board is this contract summary. What we started off with was an original contract for $118,000. And again, that was for the asphalt overlay. We conducted work sessions on this matter and ultimately made a decision we wanted to increase that project from an asphalt overlay to an urban cross-section street along with sidewalks as well as stormwater. So from a complexity standpoint, engineering standpoint, the scope of the project increased significantly. Now, when we look at this project, as well as the engineering cost on here, when you look at the overall engineering fees in relation to the overall construction project, they're about 10%. So under the circumstances, when we look at this, we feel this one's reasonable on it. It's relatively new territory, new concrete street. We're replacing a gravel street. It doesn't have the complexities, you may be wondering on the engineering fees, as the Oostport alleyway, which you have a much tighter area to work with geographically with that. So from our standpoint in reviewing this, we feel that the proposed amendment of $15,000 is reasonable under the circumstances. And as a result, we are recommending approval this evening. And with that, Mr. Mayor, that concludes our presentation this evening. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions the Mayor and Council may have on this proposed amendment.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Can I get a motion for approval?
So moved.
Manstra, Hopkins, discussion?
We could have Denny do another report like he did the first time.
Project's going real well. You know, we have two contractors that are DOT approved type, and we're allowing them to jump around for the overall check of getting the whole project done all at once. So I know it's a little frustrating on detour routes, but going real well. We're real happy with working with Wix. Yeah, here again, this project is, you know, from the start to the end, then we have the Neil Drive, east-west piece to another, I don't know, several hundred feet. So project a lot bigger. So due to economies of scale, the 15 on this, you know, the nitty-gritty on the inspection we think is down at Newsport. We're sharing the same people with the RV.
I stopped and gave the Holland guys a hard time today because they worked till, I don't know, 8:30 last night. I told them they're making me look bad. 16-hour days.
Okay, anything else? All right, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Amanda, please call the roll.
Hamstra?
Yes.
Hopkins?
Yes.
Score? Yes. DeYoung?
Yes.
Skiba?
Motion passed. Moving on, resolution number 6314, entitled Resolution Approving Engineering Service Agreement with Garden and Associate for the Boss Landon Drive Reconstruction Project. Mike?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Once again, I'd like to refer the Mayor and Council's attention to the big board. For those following at home, I'm on slide number 17. And what we're considering this evening is an engineering services contract with Garden and Associates for reconstruction of Boss Landon Drive. Now, this particular section of Boss Landon Drive, to orientate everyone, when we look at it, we're talking about this yellow highlighted section right here. T15 is located right here. To the south, I believe, is hole number 2 of the Boss Landon Golf Course. When we get up over here, if you were to go up here, was one of our new housing developments. That would be Boss Ridge. That's currently in process. Actually, homes are being built in Boss Ridge right now. Now, this particular segment would start at Highway T15 and it would extend east roughly 1,300 feet. We do have a description of the project and some of the issues why the project needs to be reconstructed on this as well. It's important to note that once the project is completed, the entire segment will be repaved, as well as we'll have additional storm sewer that will be installed in the drive as well. Let's go ahead, please, Mandy. Now, as far as the engineering cost on this, traditionally we've had very good luck and we've been very pleased with Garden and Associates on our street reconstruction projects. They've done a very good job for the City of Pella. Their proposed contract this evening is actually broken up into 2 parts. And traditionally, when most people think of engineering services contracts, they think of an engineer that is designing plans for it on it. On the case, there's always 2 aspects involved. In fact, we rely rather heavily on the engineer. You have, of course, the preliminary and final design, as well as all the bid documents for the project. That's estimated to run about $30,000. But even more importantly, we want to make sure we have solid construction observation services that is going out there to make sure that the contract is installing and making those improvements in accordance with the plans and specifications. So that's always a significant item to consider. When you add both of these items in together, cost is just over $81,000. Now, when we look at the total project here, right around $675 is what we have budgeted, at least what was included in budget. That's been somewhat fluctuating on new projects, construction projects. So the bidding for this, Denny, I assume is going to be, if council were to approve this resolution, the bids for the project would be potentially this winter/spring of next year, construction 2022. So hopefully the construction market will settle down a little bit and we'll be able to solicit some decent bids for the project. But if the council would begin this project, that is the timeline that we would be looking at. This is basically bidding the project over the winter months, spring months as well, and hopefully starting construction on this project in the spring of 2022. So with that, Mr. Mayor, that concludes our presentation this evening. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions the mayor or council may have on this item.
Thanks, Mike. Any motion for approval?
So moved. Support.
Hopkins, DeYoung, discussion?
So that whole Boss Landon Drive is in tough shape, is that's what is going on with the whole street? Is subgrade?
Yeah, and what makes this stretch worse is the steepness of the slope and the soils underneath. There's basically a raging river going on. We've pumped and pumped and pumped low-grade concrete just to fill the void. If you drive it every day and watch it, heavy trucks will actually punch through small patches and then we'll spray patch them just as a Band-Aid. It needs cut-off walls. And what's that mean? Every 150 feet to 200, we'll put a 4-foot, 5-foot deep concrete wall, clear rock upstream with tile, pull water off it so many feet. Well, that's 100 feet or 200. The geoengineers will tell us. We'll put that in before we ever pull it back.
So once we get up to I assume that runs about to the top of the hill. When we get to the top there, the rest of it isn't quite as tough shape.
Yeah, because it's all about the steepness, the slopes, the type of soil. Once the water got under there many years ago, it just, there's nothing stopped it. And yeah, you can drive it and see where that line is. I mean, it's just east of somebody's driveway.
By the way, Mike, that is hole number 2. That pond has several of them. I do recognize it. Anything else? All right, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Hopkins,
Yes?
DeYoung,
Yes.
DeAnstruck.
Yes.
Skibout, Ford. Yes.
Motion passed. Get a motion for approval to pay abstract bills number 2082. Hopkins, Skibout, any discussion, questions about anything?
I have one. What is bill service? Just for out of curiosity, hold on. In the deeds.
Bill service and repair.
Yeah, bill service and repair. There's 4 invoices. What in the world is that?
Corey, it looks like we're on page number 2.
Oh, it looks like there's 4 invoices there. And it's not that significant amount, but it just caught my eye.
We'll have to look at that when we get back.
That's okay. All right. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? All right, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Hopkins. Skibout,
Yes.
Ford. Yes. DeYoung,
Yes.
DeAnstruck.
Yes.
Motion passed. Does any council member have any other business you'd like to address tonight?
Oh, I've got one. I'd request what's the proper term? We have a really tacky looking property. Grass and weeds that high at the intersection of Jefferson and Broadway. Harlan's old property.
Jefferson.
Okay.
And I don't know whether there's a health issue there or what, but just nothing is being done.
All right. We'll check on the status of that. If it's not already, we'll review the property and provide an update on that. So thank you for bringing that matter to our attention.
Bruce, can I jump back in for real quick?
Sure.
So that's a service to the fire department equipment, so.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
I'm assuming the 4 invoices are 4 different pieces of equipment?
I would guess that's correct.
Thank you, Corey.
You bet.
Okay, anything else, council? All right, so now we will get into time for the public to address any other business that they would like to address. This time, I think I will ask the people online if there's anybody. I kind of forgot them last time. So if there's anybody online that would like to speak.
Is it okay? I'll send them a chat. There's
Okay.
quite a few people on. I'll have them let me know, and then I can unmute them one by one.
Okay.
If we want to
Okay.
here go first.
Okay.
I'll get them to you.
Okay. So if you want to address the council, please, if you're here, come to the mic, state your name and your address. And we are going to limit comments to 3 minutes. I believe Mandy has a timer that will give some warning of when we're approaching 3 minutes. So try to limit your comments to 3 minutes. Okay?
Okay. My name is Jill DeVries, and I live here in Pella. Didn't think I was going to be speaking at a city council meeting for a second time, but here I am. It feels like we were all caught flat-footed by what's happened in this last month at the pool. And now that we are facing this challenge to public decency, I think, number one, we need to address the specific issue of keeping the pool family-friendly. We know that family-friendly and topless females are not compatible. It seems a dress code is at least a short-term solution. I think either mandating swim shirts or rash guards for all patrons, or very specifically naming the anatomical parts that must be covered in a revised dress code, would prevent further incidents. Does anyone on the city council oppose changing the dress code to ensure that anatomically female breasts are covered at the pool? Can I see by a show of hands, are you opposed to this? Number two.
I would submit to that one of your number gave me a photo shot of the dress code that is enforced at the University of Iowa
Yes.
Aquatic Center, and I have distributed that, and I'm
Great.
sure that's under discussion.
Good. Yeah, I also noted today, I looked at the University of Iowa Medical School's dress code, and it is a lot more strict than anything I've seen here, and that's the University of Iowa. So I think we can do this. Number two, we need to anticipate that the episode at the pool is only the first attack on public decency. The city council needs to be proactive and take action now so Pella's other public spaces, like the Pella Market per se, remain family friendly as well. And we've seen with the second reoccurrence at the pool that inaction emboldens those who want to push their political agenda at the pool. My understanding is that Iowa's current public indecency laws do not specifically list female breast exposure except with the certain establishments that we listed last week, like restaurants. If that is true, just as the city could mandate a dress code at the pool, can the city mandate a dress code for its other public buildings like parks and streets? Is there an answer to that, or? Okay. Would we be in defiance of Iowa law if we agreed that indecent exposure includes all the things that are already in the Iowa code, and then add that in Pella, in the city of Pella, we are going to add anatomically female breasts to the list of private parts that cannot be publicly exposed? I think as citizens, we are willing to give you grace and be patient as this matter gets resolved, if we know that our city council members are on the same page as we are. My last question is this: do you still consider this matter to be concluded, as was stated last week? By a show of hands, can you raise it if you think it is concluded?
Under Iowa law, it is.
So
Then
you're
I
no further
have a
discussion?
follow-up question.
Sure.
And with all the emails I've gotten back and forth, this nudity thing keeps coming up. And from the descriptions I have gotten, what we are looking at is a non-traditional covering, not nudity.
Tape
How
on
do you
nipples is
define?
not a covering. It's not a covering. You wouldn't want your grandchildren to see that.
Okay,
You wouldn't want.
following up on that, after the last gathering here, when you all had an opportunity to say your piece, a woman came up to me and said, my granddaughter goes to the water park in bathing suits that are much more revealing.
I'm gonna get to that. Thank you, though.
Okay,
I
thank
know-
you.
No,
Sorry.
he has taken my time, and I would like it back.
No, you had 3 minutes before.
No, I hadn't.
Yes, you did.
Yep.
You did. Sit down.
Yep.
It bothers me that you say speak my piece as though you get to bear listening to us and then ignore us. We're trying to help you solve it. We're on your side.
We actually are on your guys'
Yeah.
side.
You're making it difficult.
And that was quite evident at our last meeting, how on your side, our side you are. But
We want to
3
work
minutes
with
is
you.
up.
I was not at the last meeting.
3 minutes is up. If you wish to speak, come to the podium and
Okay.
say, make your piece, say your piece.
Okay, my name is Ann Petrie. I live at 1008 Broadway in Pella. And in regard to the same incident that the last speaker was referencing, I would like to thank the City Council and the Mayor for responding consistent to Iowa civil rights law. I looked at the Civil Rights Code myself, and among the tenets are public accommodations may not refuse access, facilities, or services based on gender identity, and public accommodations may not convey a message, directly or indirectly, that any person is unwelcome or objectionable because of their gender identity. I think the message that we're sending is very important. I want to thank the City Council for upholding Iowa law, protecting against discrimination, and by extension, helping to make Pella a more welcoming and inclusive community. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Gabe Zimmerman, 1780 Fox Ridge Road. Recently moved to Pella, so really like this town. Appreciate what you guys have done with this town. Reason for my being here tonight, I think it's important that we address things as they are. Use common sense. If we have problems, this is the reason that we're here, right? If we have problems, we come and address them with the leadership. Now, I'm giving you guys grace because I happen to be in leadership and I understand it's hard to make tough decisions. I completely get that. But we've got to listen to our people. I have 3 young children, and to me, it is indecent exposure. We need to take that. If we have problems with the Iowa law, then we need to step up and take care of the Iowa law. Go through your legislators, change the Iowa law. A lot of things that are going on in America right now, we've lost sight, okay, as a country, as the people. We've lost sight. We've got to get involved. We have to be a part of changing things to what we want them to be. So I don't blame the City Council for not following, or, if state has a different statute and laws that were passed that we don't agree with. We need to get involved in the state level. The city needs to take care of the city stuff. We've got to be able to make common sense laws. Things that we got to call things for what they are. In the First Amendment, we have the right to free speech. That does not mean we don't have the right to be offended. Okay? We need to be able to share our minds and our thoughts, back it up. I do not want my children to go and be around someone that I believe has mental illness, okay? Call it what it is. I appreciate all people. I love people. I understand that everyone goes through things, through issues, whatever we want to call it. I do not want my children to be exposed to that, okay? That's pretty much what I have to say. I'm challenging all of you guys in here. Push on the state. That's what we have to do. We have to make our voices heard, be respectful, be kind to everyone, be understanding, recognize we all have faults, but at the same time, stand for something and push for goodness. We need that in our country. We need that in our cities. We need that at every level. And we need strength. That's the other thing. Don't just take it. We have to be strong. Okay? That's what I have to say. And if you don't win the first time, that does not mean you step down and back down. You keep going. Keep courage. And that's what we need.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor and Council, my name is John Butler, and I live at 406 Franklin Street. So we get to walk here. It's great. We love Pella. We've been here about 4 months, and we've walked a lot of places. Yes, I have some thoughts about the challenge at the Aquatic Center. I've read the rules, and the rules are a lot of detail. There's 4 pages of rules here covering everything. But proper swim attire is not covered until rule number 15, when it says proper swim attire must be worn. Well, somebody has to figure out what that is. And somebody has to have the authority to say, when improper attire shows up, you can't come in here. You remember, there used to be signs in restaurants, no shoes, no shirt, no service.
Mm-hmm.
No swimsuit, no service. It's about that simple. This person that showed up caught us off guard, I believe. I mean, who would have thought that would happen? Who would do that, frankly? What 15-year-old girl would do that? And the boundaries have been broached, and now we have a second incident. So back to the rules, the proper attire, it's just that simple. The proper attire that goes with community standards should be followed. And the individual, what I'm saying here is that the individuals do not have the right to determine what they can wear based on how they view their gender. And the same goes for which dressing room they use. It is possible still to determine the difference between male and female. As you notice on birth certificates, there's only male and female. Two. And so, but it's impossible to know what a person thinks. But what they think does not matter. Their feelings cannot be projected onto the group. We cannot let people define good and evil or right versus wrong. That has been defined for us by God, and He has communicated that to us in the Bible. Now, there are people that just don't believe the truth in the Bible, and that makes it very difficult to come to a resolution. But we have to stand, like the previous speaker said, we have to stand for the truth. We cannot let people call evil good and good evil, even though that's been prophesied in the Bible that day is coming. I think we're getting close. If we let that happen to us here in Pella, then we are headed in the wrong direction. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dawn Wood. I live at 208 Morningside Drive. Put it up here so I can see it better. And I did time myself to around 3 minutes. So, I am specifically asking the council to enact a dress code at our community pool that aligns with the areas of the body that are identified in the Indecent Exposure Code 709.9 while outside of the restrooms, locker rooms, as well as be bold in removing any patron who is wearing inappropriate or offensive pool attire. If the city is not willing to set this boundary, then my second formal request is to allow 50% refund of any individual or family summer pass purchased if requested, as the pool environment has drastically changed from the family-friendly experience anticipated when the passes were purchased. The minors in our town are being exploited, and our community has an opportunity to be the David in a current day David and Goliath story. Protect our children. While I agree and support many of the moral and family-friendly arguments that I'm sure you have all heard, I'm really not going to speak to you from that angle. I am going to provide a different perspective as it applies to protecting our minor-aged children who are unable to consent for themselves. As a former child forensic interviewer who has conducted around 400 child interviews, the majority of them being sexual abuse allegations, our minors are not as safe as you would like to pretend they are. I am advocating for their protection to not be victims of the strategic desensitization and normalization of indecent exposure. Our minors are being exploited by allowing the indecent exposure of minors as well as to minors to occur at our aquatic center. What is exploitation? It's the act of selfishly taking advantage of someone or a group of people in order to profit from them or otherwise benefit oneself. What else is Iowa Code 709.2 on invasion of privacy trying to protect by not allowing cameras or recording devices to be used in locker rooms or restrooms? One reason is that if a picture is taken while minors are in a state of undress, partially nude, and or that the picture is shared, that could be considered creation and the distribution of child pornography. According to the law, a person is in a state of full or partial nudity when they are showing any parts of their genitals, buttocks, or a female's breasts or nipples. By allowing minors to walk, swim, and sunbathe around the aquatic center with exposed primary or secondary sex organs, specifically breasts, they are vulnerable to being exploited. They are not protected from someone taking a picture of their exposed body. Legally, even if the minor would consent to a picture with their bare breast exposed, it still could be considered child pornography because they are under the age of 18. According to the United States Department of Justice, federal statute defines child pornography as explicit visual content depicting someone under the age of 18. Additionally, the image does not need to be literally sex to constitute child porn. The image merely needs to be sufficiently sexually suggestive, as it indicates the intent of the image to the viewer. Protect our children.
Yes.
A portion of Iowa Code 709.9 states indecent exposure is a person who exposes the person's genitals or pubes to another's, not the person's spouse, commits a serious misdemeanor if the person knows or reasonably should know that that act is offensive to the viewer.
So you're about done. Put
I
your
am.
time's up.
I am offended. I am offended that my underage children who cannot legally consent are being exploited by the actions of others, and the city has not taken steps to protect our most vulnerable community members. Protect our children. Be the David against the Goliath. Thank you.
Just a second, I want to address one thing. You
Yes.
mentioned the refund policy.
Yes.
Saturday morning, I instructed our park staff to refund people if they request.
Thank you.
Obviously, it takes a little time to establish what that's going to be, so be patient. That will be an option.
Thank you. My name is Louise Westfald. I live at 1409 West 3rd Street. And I will be very brief. I do not have prepared remarks, but I'm here to thank the City Council for their decision to uphold the non-discrimination laws of Iowa. I understand that it's been a difficult time for some members of the community, but I also understand that it's been very difficult for the student in terms of their transitioning from their whatever their birth identity was to what their true identity is. It's a very difficult time, and I'm hoping that our community will have compassion for this youth and other youth like this student. And some of the language tonight has suggested that this is pornography, that this is obscene, that this is a lot of things. And I find that very difficult in terms of the youth that I've known who struggled with gender identity over the 30, 40 years that I've worked in educational settings and known lots of these youth. These are not kids who are out there to offend other people. These are young people who are really struggling in their own lives and trying to determine who they are and what their truth in life is. And so I would ask the community to step back a moment and take a look at the language that we're using surrounding this incident and act with more compassion. And again, I thank the City Council for the decision.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Pastor Michael Schover. I live at 1000 Sunset Avenue. Of course, I wanted to speak concerning the general rules of the Aquatic Center, wherein it says the Pella Aquatic Center is a family-friendly facility. Inappropriate behavior, language, or attire are not permitted and will be grounds for refusing admission or removal from the facility without a refund. End quote. The reason this is an issue, council members, Mr. Mayor, is because it seems that words have no meaning anymore. We are told to pursue our own truth, our own definitions of words, I suppose. What constitutes inappropriate attire is allowing members of the opposite sex to expose themselves to children, synonymous with family-friendly. Is that what these words mean? Is this no longer a violation of the words inappropriate behavior or attire, simply because this is now a civil rights issue, or because one perceives reality a certain way? We know that this is actually not so much an issue of law, inasmuch as it is a matter of culture. Politics is actually downstream from culture, and we know where the larger culture of the nation is going. We have been protected from it a bit here in Pella, and for a while, the City Council and the churches of this town have served as a dam to protect us from the coming flood of degeneracy. But now that there is a compromise in the churches and question mark in the City Council, the dam is cracking and the corrupting effects of sexual immorality are now descending upon our town quicker than we realize. By giving protected status to transgendered people throughout the land, many laws concerning what is appropriate are being flushed down the drain. By not enforcing the general rules of the Aquatic Center, you are allowing and even giving preferential status to the transgender community, where certain laws just do not apply to them. I suppose if they can be in violation of the laws of nature and of nature's God, well then who cares about the laws of the local pool? Thus, by allowing members of the female sex to say that they are male, or vice versa, simply because they believe it in their own minds, though biological reality and scientific law militate against it, the city is now in the situation where they affirm those people in their delusions, encouraging them to expose themselves to young children. I consider this to be a violation of my civil rights as a Christian. We Christians have the rights to have such liberty in public places where common decency is the norm, where we are not forced to affirm the lies of those who would reject reality, and where our children are not in danger of someone exposing themselves to them from the opposite sex or having them being watched in the changing room. So, whose civil rights are you going to protect and defend? Those of the Christians, who are the best citizens and who promote the goodness of society and who work to secure the blessings?
Time's up, please.
All right, I request that the city clerk, I don't know if this is the appropriate setting to do this, I request that the city clerk put on the agenda for the next meeting that the Pella Aquatic Center would construct a policy concerning what is appropriate swimming attire. Have that be added to the next meeting's agenda so that our rights as Christians are not violated in public and so the good of the public can be promoted.
Let me address one of your accusations that the dress code is not enforced at the city pool. So through this whole process, obviously, I've tried to educate myself as much as possible, and so I've spent time in talking to my staff. The dress code at the city pool is enforced on a very regular basis. When staff determines inappropriate dress, people are asked to leave or cover up. When there's inappropriate behavior, staff addresses that and people are asked to leave. So for you to sit here and tell me that no one enforces our policies, you are unaware of the facts. Who's next?
Thank you,
No,
sir.
you're done. Who's next?
You're just not enforcing the policy when it comes to a particular group of people.
Pastor.
They have a protected status.
Pastor, Mike it is?
Yes, sir.
I think it is Matthew 7, refers to judge not lest you be judged.
Judge with perfect judgment, actually.
It depends on...
John 6.
It depends on...
That's taken out of context for what you were.
Yes.
What, judge? No, it isn't.
Judge with righteous
No, it
judgment.
isn't. Could I please finish? Thank you.
Hey, listen, if this gets out of hand, everybody will be removed immediately and this meeting will be over. So when you want to make a comment, you're doing it here.
Yes,
Otherwise, respect someone else that's speaking.
Yes, sir.
My point is that there is none of us on this side of the table asked for this to be placed before us. Where were you folks in 2007 when the Democratic Party had control of the House and the governorship when it went through?
They were campaigning. Yes.
Were we?
I have been. Yeah.
Okay?
Since I was
So
in college.
before you lay too heavy a burden on us, because we are struggling with this, but we also have guidelines that we have to adhere by. So please, you may state, but don't accuse, please. Okay?
And then I would just add one sidebar, like Don said, we've been interacting with staff, trying to get a real handle on this, and their biggest issue is obscene language by your kids and the other kids. And I don't know whether you've got a handle on that, but that is the big issue down there. And that is why more kids are ejected than any other reason.
Okay.
My name is Evelyn Nickel, and I live here in Pella. And on both what Ann and Lisa said, according to the law, it says that all of these individuals are permitted access to those facilities. And you know that doesn't say that they are allowed to come in and do this stuff. I've been in education for over 40 years, and I have known very many students who have gone through a lot of different things, and most women I've seen who want to transgender to males hate their breasts. They hate them, and so they wear chest binders almost all the time because this is the part they hate because it shows that they're female and they want to be male. So the way this person came in is opposite of almost every transgender I've ever met and talked to and dealt with, because this was flagrantly pushing an agenda that was not even strong for transgenders. How many of you had to wear these? Yeah, we did, didn't we? We had to wear them, and we had to, if we wanted to go into this restaurant, if we wanted to go into the store, we had to wear that. There is no law in Iowa that says you have to wear this mask.
And I never have.
Never has.
Never have.
Never has been a law that says this. In fact, schools and some of the areas have become so strong against taking off these masks on a COVID-19 disease that offers 99.9% survivability, that the law in Iowa now has to be made that they may not mandate they have to wear these masks. There is a way to get around this, and you are working on it, and I thank you for that. And there is a way for all of us to work this through without attacking real transgenders, without attacking each other, and without giving up who we are. You talk about your comprehensive plan. We love your comprehensive plan. But your comprehensive plan for Pella 2 is family friendly. And you know what? I don't know about you, but I haven't been in any business or any government situation where I've ever seen that it worked first time. It all needs to be tweaked. And thank you for looking at it. Thank you for checking it out. And thank you for considering to tweak it. And we will consider to be here and back you up. And if we have to kind of tweak it a little bit once in a while, work with us, okay?
Thank you.
Keith Oxbergen, 224 South Street. A couple of my questions have already been answered. You are working, and the refund is coming. My first question was, what have you been doing to prevent further incidences? Was there one last week, Friday, end of the week? Older people? So as far as young adults, it's a whole spectrum, it's just not just kids transgendering, it's older adults doing what they sometimes shouldn't do. So you have talked to your aquatic director? You said that, okay? That was one of my questions, whether you was talking to your staff and getting a game plan when it happens again, so it doesn't go on for, you're going to kick them out, save a minute, not well, shoot, a day later we was thinking about it. So there is plans in place with city employees on what to do.
Yeah.
Okay,
There's
good.
policies, yes, that they follow.
Like in libraries too, you've talked to the whole spectrum of community outreaches around here?
I haven't talked to everybody, but we do have policies in place for
That'd be
in
good.
all of our
Yeah.
facilities.
Yeah, all people, places where people congregate, if you can get everybody on the same page and nip the stuff in the bud where it gets out of hand. I was in contact with Ken Rosebone and Dustin Hyde again yesterday, and I told them we would like to have a public meeting with a forum. He asked, well, a forum? I said, yeah, a forum. And I'm hoping like the end of July. So in the city council, I want you guys to be there too. I need to find a place, someplace, large place, but not this place will fit us all. An auditorium somewhere in town. So they can also work on fixing this. So I appreciate you guys are working hard on this. I'm not blaming y'all. So, but the gentleman there said that we need to talk to our state people, and we do. And they need to go back and they need to fix this and make Iowa a family-friendly place. So.
Yeah, amen.
So that's basically what I asked the question, whether you guys were in contact with your employees to do the right thing at the right time. And you answered a lot of that. So, and I wanted to mention that I was in contact with the state reps. So if anybody's got any ideas how to, or where to, or how to, try to get a hold of me and see if we can get something happen, something fixed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Calvin Miners, 1241 70th Street, Pella. We're appreciative of what you do as a city council. We're also very disappointed in how the situation at the Aquatic Center has been handled. Encourage you to make changes so that our children are protected. Passing this off and not making changes is not acceptable. Normalizing, brushing off this behavior blurs normalcy, confuses our children, provides opportunity for them to be harmed. Have we considered what cost our children pay from all this? As has been shown, doing nothing invites more of this lewd behavior, brings it into our town. When will we take a stand? Opposite biological genders in locker rooms, bathrooms should not be tolerated. One person's liberty needs to stop before the others are compromised. We should not be subjected to indecent exposure in public places. This issue will only become worse and spread to other public areas, as was just mentioned as well, unless policies prohibit it. We are fearfully and wonderfully made by our Creator, and we need to stand up for that now and count the cost. Please make our public places more family-friendly and safe. And also, as was mentioned earlier, if universities can address this in Iowa, our city can as well. So please do.
I've asked for the floor for just a minute, and like the rest of us, I've been tossing this around a lot. And I'm going to ask for you parents, past and present, to put your psychological caps on a minute. I think we've all dealt with people who have pulled stunts for attention-getting purposes.
Yep.
And I really think, in large part, that's what we're seeing here. And unfortunately, by making a big deal out of it, we're reinforcing the fact that they've gotten their attention. And I'm not saying what, where you stand is wrong or anything like that, but I think we're stoking the fire. I mean, really, if they're down at the pool, if you look at them and have a hearty chuckle and go jump back in the water, might be a stronger response than protesting.
And you might
Just a
not
thought.
be able to have that.
Pardon me?
And as an adult, you may be able to do that. A 5, 6, 7-year-old is not going to know what
Well,
to do with that.
that's
right?
not what I'm hearing from my neighbors. That they're having adult conversations with their kids, taking advantage of this opportunity, and the kids are going, eh. We see
Okay.
that
Well,
this
that's
goes
not
on
the-
at schools, they're not torn up about it.
Yeah, we must have a different neighbor.
How do you have adult conversations with a 2-year-old or a 4-year-old? You don't. You have adult conversations with adults, not children.
Yeah, these would be adolescents.
Right.
Right.
So what about the rest of us?
Yeah, you have
My
a
children
point.
aren't old enough to
I'm
see
just
this
throwing
yet.
it out. Just, are we feeding the fire? I understand your position.
What I'd like to say too is yesterday, the parade was awesome. The parade, people were there, it was so all-American, it was just awesome. And you know, there was this pride element with the rainbow flags and everything, and I noticed that not one bigot or homophobe or what all the other things that we've been called attacked them, and I was very proud of that.
You're proud that there wasn't an attack on people walking in a parade? That's a pretty low bar.
Yeah, it is.
It's because others are being accused because we don't agree.
Okay,
with what they did.
are you done? Are you done, Mark?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay,
I
next-
didn't mean to
next
interrupt.
You just got us all started, you know.
My name is Joseph Bailey. I live at 1956 Clemens Street, actually in Audley. I grew up doing swim team at the public here in Pella. Community swim team, did that for 6+ years. I was a lifeguard. That was my first job, still in high school. And I love the Pella community, and I've really enjoyed many great experiences at the Pella pool. Currently, with what's happened, and I cannot, in good conscience, take my own children to have those same enjoyments and activities. And so that's accusatory. The policy that has been set in place and how it has been handled thus far, that what's visible is creating an environment where my family can no longer enjoy the things that my kids enjoyed, or the things that I enjoyed growing up. Transgenderism is, as some people call it, indecent exposure, is clearly against God's law, natural law, and what is right. And therefore, I was not here 2 weeks ago to be able to address you guys, and so I wanted to share my perspective this time, and want to join in encouraging you to consider the various ideas and options of how we can resolve this here in the Pella area and keep Pella as a family-friendly environment. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Helena Hayes, and I am not a Pella resident. I am outside of this county. I'm actually from Mahaska County, New Sharon area. And I'd like to bring a voice for out-of-county people because lots of people do use your pool, and it's wonderful. So let me clarify, 3/5 of you do consider this matter closed. Did I see that right? I saw 3 hands up. Is that right? So 3/5 of you do consider the matter closed at the pool.
That incident.
That incident.
Incident is closed.
Okay.
Does not mean the matter is closed.
Okay.
That incident.
Very good.
And that's what our
Thank you for
response is.
clarifying.
And you will give full refunds to anybody that requests a refund at the pool.
Prorated refunds.
What was that?
Prorated
refunds. Okay.
Staff is in the process of figuring out a policy, how that will work.
Okay.
So
Perfect.
you will have that opportunity.
A group of us started a Facebook page to simply get information out and to keep people informed because, as you know, communication is one of the most difficult issues in our society, and we have had over 1,000 membership requests. So there clearly is a demand to hear the voice of these people locally and statewide and even out of the state. We had people requesting. So one thing I want to invite everybody to, this is not the first city, obviously, that this has happened to, and it will not be the last. Next Thursday, July 15th, a speaker will be coming to Pella, and you could please put this down on your calendar. Let me make sure I get it right. Jacob Hall, he's with the Iowa Standard, and I believe he was one of the first to break the story. Is that right? Okay. And he is from Sioux Center. Okay. And they have had this same issue already in their city, and they have addressed it, but they didn't address it well. It really was not taken care of at all. And so he's going to come and speak at the Memorial Building next Thursday at 6 o'clock, the July 15th, okay, to talk about their city's experience and what occurred and what the city looks like now. And so I invite everybody to come to that to just hear what was not done correctly there and now what situation they're in. So I do know that a lot of you guys have said a lot of right things. This is a local issue and it is a national issue. So we will continue. This group of people will continue to be here because we want this issue to stay alive and not to die. So expect crowds for quite a while until the matter is taken care of. So thank you for your time and thank you for your service, council members and mayor.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Brenda Van Mark. I live at 1200 Franklin Street. Oh, my eyes are not good here. Okay, I'm just going to actually finish up what my daughter started reading since she didn't get to finish. First of all, I have a question. Councilwoman Branderhorst spoke at the last meeting saying she was appalled by the nudity our children were exposed to at the public pool. I don't see her tonight, but as a citizen, I'd like to know if her fellow council members agree that what happened at the pool was appalling. Could I see a hands of those that agree that this was inappropriate behavior and appalls you? Does anyone here agree with Lynn that yes, that behavior was appalling? I just need to know.
I can't answer. I wasn't there. I don't know.
Ditto. I am still
Okay.
Because there
flying
are
around
Would you
with
be
the
appalled
different
if a
definitions
15-year-old walked in
of
with
what
just
indecent
bare
is.
breasts or Band-Aids on them? Would that be appalling to you?
Band-Aid, athletic tape, what was it?
Here, I got pictures right here. If you guys can look
Oh, you
at
want
it.
to see some
I have yet to see a picture, so I do welcome it.
No, and you're in your position.
There's cell phone cameras everywhere.
They took their own picture and posted on Facebook.
Okay.
So this was the adult.
No, I
This
want
wasn't-
to see the Pella resident.
I saw it.
Okay, I'm going to continue so I don't
Okay,
waste
yeah.
all my time.
Please.
Okay. For me, the pool incident has nothing to do with the individual's gender identity. I would be standing here today exactly as concerned as if it had been a non-transgender person exposing her breasts. Non-trans females have rightfully so been asked to leave the pool for wearing inappropriate swimwear, as they should be. That actually covered more than the Band-Aids and stickers. So, might note that.
Did you see it?
No, we've been told.
Oh.
I am just here because I want to defend a children's environment and prevent them from seeing nudity at the public pool and cover the private parts. I'm just a grandma. My grandkids try to get raised right. They aren't allowed to be on computers. They aren't allowed to be on phones. They specifically keep their 13 of them from 11 on down to 9 months. And they're trying to be raised the right way and not exposing them to this stuff, keeping them on. They aren't allowed to be on computers. They don't play video games. They don't have cell phones. And now they're going to the public pool, and I can't take them on Grandma Day to the public pool because I have to worry what they're going to be exposed to. That's not right, folks. Let's do what's common sense. Put in it'd be very simple just to put in everybody has to wear a swim shirt. You know, it takes care of it just like that. Everybody's back at the pool. Real simple.
Thank you.
My name is Valerie Van Wyk. I live at 2308 Schulte, Pella, Iowa.
We can't hear you.
My name is Valerie Van Wyk. I live at 2308 Schulte Straat in Pella, Iowa. And I have concern for the children of this community. We ask that you too would have concern for the children of this community, that you would stand up. God's word says, when the enemy comes in like a flood, he will raise up a standard of righteousness. And we need to stand upon God's righteousness over this issue. This is not only happening in our public swim pool, but also in our public schools. Please be aware of that. Please be aware that it's not only happening in the pool, but also the schools. And it's time to stand up. Stand up for the rights of the people. We the people. We pay our taxes for this swimming pool. We the people own that swimming pool by our taxes. Do we not? What if we don't pay our taxes? You will have no job of what you're sitting in right now. We the people need to raise up. We the people need to stand up for our rights in this city, in this country. It's time to take a stand. We will someday stand before God.
Amen.
And you are representing us. And I hope that when you lay your head on your pillow, you can lay there in peace and know that you have done right before God. Amen?
Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, pastors, for taking a stand. We need, and thank you, men of our community, for taking a stand. We as women need men and pastors and city council members to stand up and take a stand and to be a voice. Please, let's, as a city, get together. I thank the man that's getting together, people and community members coming together. We need to come together and to take a stand.
Mentally ill.
Oh, what's your name?
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Jay Thornton. I live at 615 East 2nd Street. Mentally ill, exploitative, pornography, sexual immorality, oppressive, appalling, a stunt, proud that people were able to restrain themselves for not attacking people walking in our town's parade yesterday. That was a group of teenagers and myself. I was the pastor carrying the sign saying, "This pastor loves you."
That was sarcastic remark.
Don't interrupt.
Let him speak, please.
I am also a pastor, and I'm used to standing behind a podium and a microphone and talking. But I'm used to doing that in a theological forum. This is not a theological forum. But as I've sat patiently, or maybe not so patiently if you've been sitting around me, and listened to you all, if this were a theological forum, you would all come up short, those of you who have said these hateful words that I've mentioned. Your words and accusations are about a teenager that you don't know and that you don't understand. So instead of coming with your words of hate, try a little love, Christians. Instead of coming with your words of anger, try a little patience. Instead of coming with your words of disrespect, try kindness. How you have behaved tonight is sinful, and you should repent. And you are right. And you are right. The enemy has come in like a flood with prejudice, ignorance, and hatred. And all you have to do to see it is take a look at yourselves.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, and thank you for upholding the law.
It isn't in the law.
My name is Wendy McGinn. I'm going to try to get through this. I live at 201 Broadway. We've lived here about 5 years. Before that, my husband and I worked in a ministry in upstate New York for 10 years. We lived as house parents, disciplers,
loving on a group of people for 10 years that came to live with us from anywhere from a year to 2 years. I want to speak especially to the two women, I'm sorry I've forgotten your names, and the pastor that just got up. I understand your compassion. I really do. We spent 10 years with people living there, and most of the issues that came to us were sexual issues. Either we knew about it ahead of time from application, or it came out after we were working with them for a while. My husband and I lived in the house with them. We were the only ones there. We worked with people that were young men that were cross-dressers who struggled horribly with it. We worked with people that were homosexual. I worked with a girl for almost 20 years also at the same time who, from the time she was 6, was exposed to her 15-year-old cousin sexually and had things done to her sexually. It would take me too long to tell you the number of people that we fell in love with. We loved them. And we poured our lives out for them. And I would do it again. It was draining. We were raw when we came here, but we loved every one of them across the board. We were working with them all at the same time. That's not the issue. I believe every Christian sitting in here, if they were put in our shoes, would love these people and would help them and would work with them. That's not the issue. The issue is that all of those people that came there for help, we had anywhere from 17-year-olds to 60-year-olds that were still struggling with these things in their lives, that were either, they were sinned against, and out of that being sinned against, then they went into life and sinned in the same way. It was horrible for them. And they were crying out for help. But the issue isn't that, whether we would love them or not love them one-on-one. The issue is these people also did not want to behave in a way that put suffering on other people. They didn't want to cause suffering to their family. They didn't want to cause suffering to other people in the community. They wanted to be helped with that because they knew it had brought suffering. Okay, my 3 minutes is up. I guess all I want to say is we can come together on this, but at the same time, what I think the majority of the people in here are asking is, can this be resolved? Can we all not, like they said, attack one another, but can it be resolved in a way that we all have that compassion for one another, but at the same time, there's not, the people do have a right not to be exposed to this and not to have their children exposed to it. And I would say every single person that came through that ministry center for 10 years would have never wanted this kind of thing to happen. I don't know, you can't judge the heart. You can judge behavior, you can't judge the heart. Was it attention getting? I don't know. Is this person really struggling with this? I don't know. We don't know. Nobody knows. But I think it's been stated here pretty clearly that the people of the community just want this resolved, that's all. And they want you guys to do it for them. They're pleading with you. I guess that's all.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Katie Bekeisen. I live at 1313 Main Street. And I came to not talk, so this is not good. I don't even want to talk about what happened at the pool. I want to talk about next. I understand that whole situation. We'll just say it's over. But what about the next situation? And I know we mentioned it, but there hasn't been an answer. I have 5 children. 5. We have a pool now because of COVID. We weren't sure what was going to happen, so that's been great. But we still go up to the Pella pool. They like the slides. I love this town. We moved here from Florida because where we were living was not a place to raise my kids. Yes, we moved to Pella from Florida. Okay, don't ask me why in the world. Okay. Well, they're in a hurricane right now, so there's their answer. It was not a place for one of my kids. The beaches. It was worldly. I wanted to come to a place like Pella. My husband grew up here. He loves it. We moved here. I love it here. I tell all my friends, move to Pella. It's the best place in the world. It's like utopia. Move to Pella. I want to walk down the street on Thursdays in Pella. I want to go to 4th of July. I want to go everywhere and protect my kids and have it be a place. It has nothing to do with transgender. Not at all anymore. I'm past that. Totally past it. I too, my kids don't do screen time very much. They don't know swear words, so it wasn't them smart at the pool, trust me. We do our best to raise them right, and I don't want to have conversations that they're not ready for yet. We will have those conversations, absolutely, when they're old enough, when they're ready. They're not ready. I live here because I love it. I live here because this is a safe place. My kids can ride their bike to basketball practice, and I don't have to worry about them. I want it to stay that way, and it's not because of transgender. I'm not worried about them, guys. They're going through stuff. Whatever. I pray for them. I hope for them. I want them to get the help to do that if that's what they want. What I want for us is for it to stay that way for my kids. For me, to be able to go wherever I want to go with my kids and feel like this is Pella, this is us, this is who we are. So I guess my question is, are we working on a policy? You said there's no city policy for this kind of thing. So are we working on a policy for appropriate attire in the library? Appropriate attire at Thursdays in Pella? Can we even do that? Are we allowed to tell people what to wear in public, in the parks? I guess that's my question. Is that possible to come up with a solution, not just for the pool, but for just us?
I would say yes, we are discussing policy.
Thank you.
I come here this evening not really to talk. I've been in those seats a few years ago.
What, can we get your name and address?
Howard Brome, 234 East 10th Street, Pella, Iowa. So anyway, I understand what you guys are going through. Luckily, fortunately, by God's grace, I didn't have to sit in any of this kind of stuff when I was here. But, I do respect you, and I respect that you're going to work at some solutions. Right now, and you all know this, but children are under attack. It's just about every angle you look at. There's trafficking, they're being exploited in various ways. And I'm a dad, I'm a grandpa, and I'm concerned about my kids and my soon-to-be great-grandkids. So I just want to ask that you really work on this. Keep in mind these families here that have the kids, that have the grandkids coming up too. I trust you're going to get it done, and I do appreciate all you do. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else?
Any online?
No one has ended either online. Let me go ahead and unmute it just in case.
Yeah.
Give them a chance.
Everyone else is now unmuted.
Anyone
Yeah.
online
Hello.
want to speak? I'm assuming not, so. I will
Everyone
entertain a
else is
motion
now
to
muted.
adjourn.
I'd like to slip one thing in if I can
Okay.
bore you some more. Totally understand.
Can you turn that mic up?
It should be on.
Hard to hear you.
It should be on. Better? Better?
Here we go.
Maybe Mandy cut me off. Totally understand your concern about your children. I get that. But in the big picture of this, and we're all constrained by the oaths we have taken, but at every council meeting, we stand up, and you did too, and face that flag and say, with liberty and justice for all. And every council meeting, I sit down feeling like a hypocrite. And I don't know, this is an individual thing. I don't know where you were at, but I think we fall way short of that statement. And thank you, I won't bore you anymore.
We do have one online that just sent a message.
What's that?
We do have one online. They're unmuted.
Someone online, did you want to speak?
Yes, hi, I'm Dawn Thornton. I live at 615 East 2nd here in Pella. I just wanted to pop on here real quick and thank the City Council for, first of all, upholding the law thus far. I cannot imagine how difficult this is, how many emails, phone calls you're getting. Thank you. We all appreciate it, regardless of what side we are on right now. I wanted to talk for a moment about the concept and idea of legislating morality. I understand that many of you are offended by transgender people wearing clothing of the opposite of their birth gender. However, there are several of us that, before this discussion even came up, were offended by some of the clothing that our young women are wearing at school.
True.
So I caution you to be very careful when talking about dress code. Where does the line stop? Do we start telling young women they can no longer wear tube tops downtown at Thursdays at Pella? Do we tell the young girls who go to school that their shorts have to be a certain length, their dresses have to be a certain length? Do we not allow bikinis anymore? Because that shows a lot of skin. We need to be very, very careful here, because our country was founded on the right and the ability to get away from so many oppressive thoughts and feelings of the church. Now, I am all for religious freedom. I love it. It's one of the best things about being in America. But we cannot tell our young people that they can't be who they were born to be. And modesty, I get it. I'm a big fan of modesty. But we need to be very careful that as we approach this, we're approaching it for everyone and not isolating one particular group of transgender people. It needs to be for everyone. That's all that I have to say.
Thank you.
Can I sneak that in?
Yeah.
Kyle Punt. I guess I'm not officially in the city limits either. We live out in Dutchman's Landing. We pay the out-of-town rates, I guess, to have our pool memberships and also do a swim team. So I think I can say my piece. I guess one thing to piggyback on that, I think we should consider more of the dress code. And I come at that from last year we went to Adventureland, had a wonderful time in the water park. And there were several thongs walking around. I was like, oh goodness, people wearing thongs. I mean, I don't want my kids to see that either. No. So I mean, yeah, let's write a dress code that includes that. And I think I don't know the law on these sorts of things, but I know that earlier we talked about a lawn on Broadway that's excessively long, and I don't think there's any laws about that. But we can write codes about things that our community does and doesn't want to see. And so I think at the end of the day, if you want not this many people to show up at your council meetings, we need a dress code. I mean, I think in my simple brain, we don't talk about the transgender part if we think that's too dicey. We can stay away from that. But I mean, I did see that University of Iowa pool dress code. And it's simple. There's a male and a female column. I mean, those are the parts. And you can do all the males need to wear rash guards? I don't think so. Pretty sure Spencer would back me up that you could define female breasts as something different than a chest, as a lot of the articles like to write it. Chest covering. Maybe one other piece of clarification I just want to throw out there too. I think there are some people in the room maybe a little unsure of how the first event went and were they trying to offend people. My wife was there that day, and the main area that they hung out that day was near the green slide. And if the green slide doesn't mean anything to you, it's where the really little kids go and where teenagers do not hang out. So I mean, that was a statement day. It was all about making a statement to round two when people showed up. So we've opened the door.
the way to close the doors is dress policy. I'm with the others. I'll probably stop coming the day I hear there's a dress policy. I think it's that simple.
All right, council, anybody else? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Bannister, Hopkins, all in favor, please say yes. Opposed, no. Mandy, please call the roll.
Bannister?
Yes.
Hopkins? Ford? Yes. Young?
Yes.
Eden?
Yes.
Motion passed. We are adjourned.